definition or this. So, okay. So this difference is particularly defined in the US. In the UK, they generally think of CV and resume in similar terms. So you'll have to see wherever you are sending your resume or CV in order to judge whether you want to send in what we'll be defining as resume versus what we'll be defining as CV. So a resume is a very, very brief document of 1 to 2 pages. You'll have to write everything very focused in those 1 to 2 pages versus a CV, which has got no limit. It can be 2 pages, 3 pages, 4 pages. And then, so since CV is the story of your academic life, it can go on and on as you progress during your academic life. Obviously, it's good to have a CV which is sort of focused towards where you are applying. So for example, CVs are used for academic purposes like writing a grant for a research fellowship. So focusing your CV towards that specific goal is important. But then again, CV has got no limit. On the other hand, resume is very specific. So whenever you are applying for any job, not necessarily an academic job, you have to submit a resume, and that's only 1 to 2 pages long. It's very precise, while CV includes a complete course of one's career. Today, we'll be discussing a CV, which is more relevant for academic purposes. For example, once we are writing a grant or for a research fellowship, etc., etc. So this is how a resume looks like. A very brief 1-pager document, maximum 2 pages. They have tried to fit in everything on this 1 page, so the recruiter knows whatever information you want them to know right away. They don't have time. They'll just look at that 1 single page and try to guess how you are as a candidate for that particular position. On the other hand, a CV is a much longer document. It'll have more detail, and we'll be discussing how to formulate that detail and what are some of the sections of CV in the next few slides. So what to include in a CV? That will be our question for the day. So these are some of the sections that can be included in a CV. So these are not hard and fast rules. You can always have different sections depending on what, where you are applying and what you are applying for. But these are some of the general sections that are consistent, sort of consistent in different CVs. And these are some of the general themes that you can stick to when making a CV. So obviously you'll start with your full name, followed by your contact information. And that contact information can be your email, phone number, and address. These are the main ones. We'll be seeing a sort of a template right after this on a Word document to see how all of these sections fit in a Word document or a CV document. So first your full name, followed by your contact information, which will have your email, your phone number, and your address, followed by your educational background. So for all of the sections that follow after education, you'll have to use reverse chronological order. So chronological order, normal chronological order is 2001, 2002, then 2003, then 2004. In reverse chronological order, you'll have to mention the most recent event first. So 2000 is 2021. So you'll first mention 2021, then 2020, then 2019, then 2018, then 2017. This is reverse chronological order. Whenever you are seeing amount of information in a CV, always follow the reverse chronological order. There can be some exceptions, but generally recruiters or people who want to see your CV want to know whatever you have been doing in the most recent past. And then if they have more time and if they want to know about you more, they can go back further in the subsequent years, but those years should be in the reverse order. So for example, if I decide to submit a CV anywhere today, first, I'll mention whatever I have been doing in education in 2021, then 2020, then 2019, 18, 17, and subsequently all those years, but in backward order. Same goes for all other sections as well. So honors and awards, whatever honors and awards you have won in 2021 will come first, followed by 2020, 2019, 18, 17. Same goes for professional experience or employment. Whatever you have been doing in the most recent years would be first, followed by all the rest of the years. So this will go for all of the sections, so we won't be going over it again now. So full name, followed by contact information, your educational background, honors and awards, professional experience, extracurricular and volunteering experience, certifications and licensures, publications and presentations, including your research work, and skills and languages. And then you can also add on other sections based on what you have been doing. But these are some of the general sections that should be there in your CV. So let's go over a sample CV, just a template. So you'll have your first full name at the very top of the CV, followed by your personal data that may or may not include your date of birth, but should include your address, phone number, and email. Then the second section is on your education, most recent educational background first, followed by other educational experiences, but they are in reverse chronological order. So 2021, then 2020, 15, 13, and so on. Same goes for honors and awards. Most recent honors and awards first, followed by the ones which have been received in the previous years. Same goes for professional experience, extracurricular and volunteering experience, certifications and licensures, memberships, and these memberships can be memberships of any professional organizations, international professional organizations, or organizations back at your school, medical school, or even before. So for a CV, as a general rule, educational background should begin from undergraduate. But since most of us are medical students over here in this particular workshop, so here what we can do is we can start from maybe A levels, O levels, and then once we are building our CV over time, after 10, 15 years, the most basic experience that we can begin from is our undergraduate, which is medical school for most of us. So, and if you have got significant achievement before that and you want your recruiters or anyone who's reading your CV to know that, you can always go back to the point, whatever significant achievement that you have before that point, and that can always be mentioned. And that's always up to you, but this is the general rule. So memberships of different professional organizations, which can be international bodies, for example, American College of Surgeons, which can be student organizations in our case, for example, Surgery Interest Group and others. Then research, publications, and presentations, whatever research work that you have been doing, whether it's published yet or not, whether it's in progress, whether it has been submitted to press, all of that can be mentioned over here with complete details, whether it has been submitted or not, and whatever stage of research it is on. Even if it's not published, you can still put it here for people to know that you are doing something. Especially for medical school, where people might not have enough publications, you can always mention things that you have been working on and they are in progress. Same goes for publications as well as presentations. So if you have been presenting at academic conferences, you can always mention them over here. Then this is another area that you can mention, interest and activities. Your hobbies are always a key point for the recruiters to know in order to define what sort of person you are overall. So always include this section, but then this is not one of those sections that will define you professionally. So this will be up to you whether you want to mention it or not, but this can be one of the sections that you can probably add. The ones that we have discussed right before this section are almost always present in a CV, given that you have been doing all of those things. If, for example, you don't have any professional memberships, you can exclude this section, obviously. If you don't have research publication presentations, you can exclude that section till the point that you have those sort of things, and then you can include them. Same goes for skills and computer skills, and then languages. So these will be some of the sections that are there in a typical CV. And then if there are other things that you feel are important for you as a person, or are important to define you as a person to in the eyes of the recruiter, always do mention them. And then we'll see how to go about proofreading your CV and how to decide whether a particular section is actually important or not. So this is a sample CV. Now, if you have any questions, I think we'll be taking them towards the end, right, Ali?
Yeah, we will be taking them towards the end, but if you want like participants to ask questions now, we can open. Like there is a question from Izzat Tahir that does it matter if you write the year at the right instead of the left margin?
Can you go over the question again?
So does it matter if you write the year at the right side instead of the left margin? So the sample you showed, the year is basically written
On the left margin.
yeah.
So let's go back to the sample. So, so the question is whether the years can be, instead of this side, they can be placed over this side.
Basically.
So if the formatting suits well, if the overall theme of the CV looks good, you can always try whatever you want. There is no international book on CVs जो कि define करती है that you have to place your years towards the left. If the overall formatting suits years towards the right, you can always go for that. There is no as such limit on what you want and how you want to format your CV. But it should have a decent overall look. So, do we have other questions?
I think the questions will come, so we can take all of them at end because
sure.
they will then keep on coming. Yeah.
Okay, so you have a lot of questions.
Yeah, so we just got two new questions in the chat.
Sure. We can go over them towards the end. Now, how to make your CV. So you know the format, you know what to include in a CV. Now, what happens is, if someone asks you for a CV and gives you a deadline, you'll have other things to do as well. You can't always sit the night before and then make your CV. So the easiest option for you is that you make a master CV. And you'll hear this term frequently. Master CV is nothing but a document that you update on the go. So you can have it on your mobile phones, on the Notepad app, or a Google Doc, or a Word file. Whatever you do, whenever you do, for example, you are attending this talk today, you can simply go over there, mention it over there, so that once you are updating your actual CV, you have that information there and then. Because, for example, a month from now, if you are asked to submit your CV, you might not remember what you have been up to throughout the month. But if you have been mentioning everything along with the dates, you'll have a biodata or a sort of information that you can simply refer to and then get all that information into your actual CV. So a master CV is just a document where you keep adding stuff on the go. So, for example, you complete a certificate course today, you attended a talk yesterday, you just keep on mentioning that in a rough sort of way, which will help you remember whenever you are supposed to formulate your actual CV or submit your actual CV, so you can easily update it once needed. So master CV is this. And, as medical students, we should all have a master CV. We should, for example, if you don't have a master CV today, what you can do is go back, whatever CV document you have right now, convert it into a Google Doc, have that with you on your phone, and whenever you do something new, just add it over there. And that's going to be a master CV. And for example, a month from now or 2 months from now, someone asks you for a CV for a particular position in a society, or if you want to apply for electives or anything else, simply you can copy paste that information onto a document, whatever refined form of CV that you are going to send them. You can get all information from this document, which you'll be calling a master CV, and then you can forward the document to the organization that you want to apply to. So, do's and don'ts of a CV. I hope some of the questions that have been coming up so far might get answered through this section. So, whenever making your CV, use a standard font and size and style. So 10 to 12 for text, 14 to 16 for headings. Consistent layout. So that question, whether we can use left indentation or right indentation, yes, we can do that. It has to be consistent and it has to be properly formulated into a document that the document looks complete and nice. That's all. Whether it's right or left doesn't matter. The document should look sensible and the document should be professional. Then you have to be honest in your CV, because then obviously CVs are followed by interviews, and CVs, if successful, are followed by whatever opportunity that you have been applying to. So if you have been dishonest in your CV, you'll obviously be exposed, because you'll have to demonstrate whatever you have mentioned in your CV subsequently. So be honest. There is no need to lie in your CV. Be honest with whatever you have been doing so far, and that will be the best possible outcome for you in terms of your CV. Then use positive action words, for example, organized, delivered, accomplished, but don't overuse them. Any CV should look appropriate for whatever you have been doing so far, for your level of experience. All of these words look nice, but these words should not be overused. Then proofread your CV for punctuation and grammar, especially. So you can maybe proofread them manually, or maybe use softwares like Grammarly, Turnitin for their uh, for their spell checkers, for their grammar checkers, and that will help you as well. They have got free versions as well as paid versions. You can always take help from those softwares as well. Once you have made that CV, now since CVs aren't fixed in stone, you may or may not add sections that we discussed earlier. So you can ask a colleague or a senior to go over your CV and then suggest whether they think it's appropriate. If they think anything needs to be changed, and then you can discuss it with them and then maybe change it or maybe not change it. So you can always ask for help from people within your friend circle, colleagues, seniors, who can guide you about CV, your particular CV. So once you have it ready, always ask someone to help you out to finalize it. An extra pair of eyes will always help refine the document that you are about to send. So it always helps that you have the document ready beforehand. So whenever you are asked to submit it, you have enough time to do all of these steps and then submit it subsequently. Then these are some of the don'ts of the CV. Do not make CV at the last moment, because we are bound to make mistakes. When we are making a CV at the last moment, there'll be spelling mistakes, there'll be things that we are missing out. We might have done a lot more and we might miss out on stuff that might have been important in getting the job that you have been applying to, or getting the position that you have been applying to. So making a master CV that we have discussed earlier will always help in this. So you have a document you can refer to, you can simply take that information and finalize it in your final document. Do not use flashy or large fonts. It always has to be professional. We already discussed that standard fonts, for example, Arial, Calibri, ones that are sort of professional and are frequently used in official documents, are recommended for CV making. Also, making text bold and underlining them should be appropriate and shouldn't be overdone. Also, the font size should be, for example, 14 to 16 for headings and around 10 to 12 for the regular text. Do not simply list down stuff in your CV. So for a resume, which is a very brief document, 1 or 2 pages, you may want to list down stuff because you have to be very precise. But for a CV, you want to sell yourself to the recruiter or to whoever is about to read your CV. So do not simply list down stuff, because in most cases, people do not realize what you have been up to just by the title of the thing that you are writing. So if it's obvious, it's obvious. If it's not obvious, write a few more sentences elaborating what you have been doing. For example, in your professional experience, if you think that you have been, for example, Ali is leading the alumni division of SIG. If he wants to write that particular point in his CV, he'll have to elaborate what the alumni division does and what he has been doing throughout this time, because whoever is reading his CV might not be familiar with how the SIG functions and how the alumni division in SIG functions. So if Ali wants the person to really understand what he has been doing, he might have to elaborate further what alumni division in SIG does. Simply writing that I was the lead for alumni division might not work. So therefore, writing a few more sentences in your CV will always help you express yourself and to sell yourself to whoever you have sent your CV to. Do not include unnecessary personal details. Just stick to professional information. Personal information is limited to the ones that we discussed at the very beginning. So your address, your phone number, your email address. All of these information will help the recruiter contact you, and that's all that you need. And then you always have to have a cover letter on your CV. And do not submit your CV without a cover letter. And we can see over here what a cover letter will look like. So it'll simply be a few lines explaining how you are relevant to the role, and then telling them that you are attaching your CV with the email that you are sending. But always have a covering letter with your CV. Do not send your CVs without a covering letter. This is sort of a norm for to have a covering letter at the beginning of your CV, and this will be a format for a covering letter. Nothing too difficult to comprehend. So simply a few lines would do. So now I think we are done with this part. Ali, would you like to have questions for CV writing now? Yeah, you'd like me to cover email writing and then we can come over the questions later.
Which way will you prefer?
It's up to you.
I think we can have now because yeah, we are moving ahead of time. So I think we can have. So if any of the participant wants to ask like question directly, they can raise their hand and we can unmute them so they can ask question, and we will filter the questions which are relevant from the chat and which aren't answered in like till now in the session. So we will ask them too. So is there any question like which hasn't been answered, Manze?
Hi,
So
I
that
just wanted to ask.
yeah.
Sorry, you can go first.
Yes, Abid, go ahead.
All right, I just wanted to ask if we're going to define what exactly we did in some specific electives, or let's say, for example, we learned in a specific course or did in any extracurricular activity, and we define it for every activity that we did. Won't it make the our CV like very long, like 5 to 6 pages? And if it goes like 5 to 6 pages, is it okay to have such a long CV?
Thank you for the question. Yes, definitely you can. So CVs don't have any limit. Once you are submitting a CV, you'll have to see what experience is important for the person who will be reading your CV. For example, your particular elective counts towards a particular residency program, and you are submitting your CV for that residency program. Then you'll have to elaborate on that particular elective or that particular experience in detail, because that will help the recruiter understand why you are the perfect candidate for this position. You can always ignore other electives that you have been doing which are not so relevant to the particular position that you are applying to if you want to have your CV stay within a particular limit. But then always elaborate on stuff that you are that you think are relevant to the position that you are applying to, and therefore the concept of master CV comes in. You have all that information over there and you selectively choose those topics which are relevant to the position that you are applying to, and then you elaborate on them. And then you can just mention others which are not so relevant, but then you can just simply mention those as pointers. But the experiences which are very relevant should be elaborated in detail, because that will help you and that will help the recruiter as well. I hope this
Perfect.
answers
Thank you.
your question.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And if we're doing any research or taking part in any research, do you think that we should elaborate on what exactly was our part in the research? Like, did we do the manuscript writing or the data collection? Should we mention that?
Yeah, you can mention it in a, so basically what you'll be doing for research is you'll be mentioning the entire topic that you are researching on. You'll be writing the names of the authors, your co-authors, and then you can always write, okay, whether it's in the press or if it's in it has been published or it's still in any literature search, or basically not literature search, whatever stage of the entire research process it is in. And then you can always follow it with a single word, whether you have been doing data collection or statistical analysis or whatever. So it will not take up a significant amount of space. So you can always follow it up with that. If you think that you have been contributing in almost all of the aspects of research, you can skip this part.
All right. Thank you.
You're welcome. Do we have other questions or should we go on?
Ali, your mic is off.
I'm sorry. So Mohsin has raised his hand. So can you please unmute him, Manzar?
Assalamu alaikum, Dr. Ali. Thank you for this session. It's very informative. I just had a quick, simple question. So you mentioned the cover letter. Is it normal to send that in as a separate document, or is it attached in the beginning of your CV, or exactly how? And if you're taking your CV, let's say, to an interview with yourself, do you also need a printout of the cover letter in that case, or is it just for emails? Thank you.
Thank you, Mohsin, for your question. You can always include the cover letter as part of your email. So the body of the email can have the covering letter. You can, in case whoever is reading the email is your primary recruiter. So if the person who is going to go through your CV is the person who has been addressed in the email, for example, if Dr. Peter, for example, has asked you for your CV, and he is the one who will be making decision on your application. So he is the primary person who's going to read your CV as well. And you are going to write an email to Dr. Peter's secretary, for example. You can include the covering letter as well as the CV document as attachments to the email that you are sending. So Dr. Peter's secretary will forward both the covering letter and the CV itself to Dr. Peter. But in case you are sending the document directly to Dr. Peter, so what you can do over here is, so the email address is peter@gmail.com or whatever, you can include the text of the covering letter within the body of the CV of the email as well. So both ways are fine, but it'll depend on the context. Whether you are sending it to the recruiter, the primary recruiter directly as an email, then you can include the covering letter within the body of the email. If you're not sending it directly and you are sending it through another channel, then you can include both of them as separate documents within the email that you are sending. I hope that answers your question, Mohsin.
Assalamualaikum, sir. I have a question. If someone is applying for electives for their interested field, do we send CVs and cover letters for that purpose?
So it'll thank you for your question. So it'll depend on wherever you are applying for that particular elective. Most places might have an elective portal, and they might ask you for certain documents, and then you'll have to follow that particular route for applying for that elective. But in some cases, you will have to ask faculty for electives, and I have got a sample email in the email writing section for that one as well. So if you're going to ask a faculty for an elective, you can include your CV in that email and the covering letter in that email as well. But if you are going to apply on an elective portal, which most of the universities internationally have, then you'll have to follow guidelines, whatever guidelines are over there. If they ask you for a CV, they'll always have a section in that portal asking you to attach your CV, and then you can attach it over there. If you're writing an email to a faculty, in an instance where you are supposed to write emails to a faculty, so some places might not like people directly approaching their faculty. So in those cases, we have to be careful about that. But if you are allowed to write emails directly to faculty, you can always attach your CV, your covering letter with that email. That'll be just fine. I hope it answers your question. If there is a follow-up question, you may ask.
So we have a question from chat as well. So
Yes,
it is, if any skill or experience fits under two headings, can we write it under both headings or just one of them?
It's better to avoid duplication, because again, you'll have to stick to a limited amount of space, because recruiters might not have enough time to go over every detail. It's always best to avoid duplication.
Okay, and another one on the official electives. Non-official electives with consultants, with hospitals. Should these be mentioned in CV, or would be these a negative impact?
Unless they are illegal, you can always mention them. Unless they're illegal. If they're not illegal, you have been rotating with the faculty that which is completely legal, the faculty is on board, then you can always mention them. There is nothing wrong with that. All experiences count.
Okay. And there's one more repeated Thrice questions. What makes a CV strong if we are applying for PLAB USMLE?
Um, so in those cases, obviously, your USMLE step score, your research work, your extracurriculars, all of these components will count. Previously, USMLE step 1 used to be had the highest weightage. Now, from January 2022, they'll be stopping the USMLE step 1 score. So it has been thought that USMLE step 2 CK score might have more weightage, followed by whatever electives that you have done, US clinical experience. For UK, you will obviously require other sort of experience. For US, you'll require US clinical experience, followed by your extracurriculars and research. This is a general pattern what program directors follow in the US. So your USMLE score, followed by your research, your honors, maybe whatever you have been doing in your medical school, scholarships, honors, etc. So all of this will make your CV look better.
Thank you. So we can move ahead with email writing.
I think we have a hand raised. Do we want to take this question?
Yeah, we can take, I think, one more.
All right. Yeah. Assalamu alaikum, Dr. Ali. I just wanted to ask that you mentioned the difference between a resume and a CV, right? So when should we send a resume and when should we send the whole CV? Or does that job specific?
So it will depend on whatever the recruiter is asking you. If they're asking for a resume, you'll send in a resume. If they're asking you for a CV, you'll send in a CV. Simple. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, it's fine. Thank you. All right.
Thank you. Okay, let's move on.
Yeah, we can move ahead. Someone asked in the chat that if Dr. Muhammad Ali is willing to guide ophthalmology aspirants, so you can let them know.
Well, I am an ophthalmology aspirant myself, in need of guidance. Once I secure a residency in ophthalmology, inshallah, I'll be able to, whatever, in however way possible, I'll be able to guide. I am an ophthalmology aspirant myself, so I think I am still in need for guidance in that regard. So, email writing. So, structure of an email, it'll include a subject, addressing the recipient, and body and closing. So subject should be crisp and reflective of whatever the email content is. So if you're writing to a faculty asking for an elective, the subject should be request for an elective, so that the faculty knows that whenever they'll open this email, they know what to expect. Nothing like a clickbait, kuch aur likha ho, kuch aur beech mein content ho. That won't look professional, and that's not recommended. Then addressing the recipient, correct spelling and title. A lot of people are very conscious about the spelling of their name. So whenever emailing a faculty, always double check that the spelling that you have written are correct. So this is super important. And address them formally. Generally in the US, doctor followed by their last name is a formal address to the faculty that you might be writing to mostly, followed by body and closing. So in the first paragraph, introduction, your own introduction, followed by the purpose of the email. This will be the first paragraph. Then in the second paragraph, a brief intro oblique recap of how you know the recipient. Example, you might mention a particular research that you saw of theirs and you are interested in that topic if you are writing to ask them for a spot in their research. Followed by, so whatever content that follows thereafter needs to be in meaningful paragraphs, so it's easier for the reader to read. Always thank the recipient in the final paragraph and then sign off with your name and contact information so that they can get back to you whenever they go through your email. So these are the components or the structure of any email that you'll be writing. We can go over a sample email first and then go over or first we can go over some tips and tricks for how to best write an email, and then we can go over a sample email. So whenever you are writing an email, always use a professional email. The email address should not contain words that you think are out of the definition of professional. So it's best to make an email that you are using for example, for your applications, for electives, for everything that follows your med school. Usually, email addresses provided by your med school should suffice in this regard. Then, whenever you're writing an email using a free or paid version of text checkers, for example, Grammarly help, because then you can be comfortable that whatever you have written does not have any spelling mistakes or grammar mistakes or anything of that sort, because you might have to write very frequent emails and then mistakes can be common. So that will help you. Always add the email address towards the end of the email. So email address is the top bar whenever you are writing an email, but never ever fill that particular section before you have written the entire email and you have cross-checked, because people tend to make mistakes in the email and you might end up sending the send button before you have counter checked whatever email that you have written. So always write the address of the recipient towards the end. That will sort of safeguard your email till the point that you have checked, but that the text of the email matches whatever you want to send. Then schedule your emails during morning hours. They'll help you get more responses because faculty usually read your emails towards that part of the day. So morning hour emails can be scheduled easily using automatic email scheduling feature of most email service providers. And then in case you have been in touch with the faculty and then they stop responding to your emails, you can call or email their office secretary. You can find their contact details from, for example, if you are emailing someone from your own university, you can visit their office secretary and ask for their contact details. You can request them in that physical interaction as well to ask the faculty, to ask about the faculty, whether the faculty is on leave, or to physically remind the faculty whenever they get a chance that they have to get back to you. So these are some of the tips and tricks to get your email through to a faculty and get responses. So let's go over a sample email. So here's an email that we are going to write to Dr. Peter. So dear Dr. Peter, this is the address. Peter needs to be his last name. If whatever the faculty's name is, always use their title followed by their last name. Then I hope my email finds you well and in good health. This is a general opening statement. Then you'll have to introduce yourself, whoever you are. And then in the subsequent paragraph, you'll be writing about your purpose for that email. The same purpose needs to be reflected within the subject line of the email as well. Note, however, that we have not written the email address of the recipient towards till the very last of this email. So now subject, for example, we are asking for elective, so we can write request for elective. So whenever Dr. Peter opens his inbox, he'll automatically know that this email is about request for elective placement. Then you'll have to briefly recap whatever you have been doing so far and how you know Dr. Peter. So during the course of my rotations at XYZ University, I kept exploring my interest in different specialties and finally decided to go with hematology after a lot of deliberation. Around 7 months back, I got in touch with one of your mentees from the class of 015, Dr. Hassan Iqbal. He spoke very highly of you and recommended that I seek your mentorship and guidance. So you have briefly recapped how you know Dr. Peter. You can also quote his research if you don't know one of his mentees, or anything that relates to you with Dr. Peter, so he knows how you know him. Then I'll be graduating in November. I plan on taking this. Following that, I plan on starting a postdoctoral research position. As someone with an extensive research and clinical experience, I look up to you for your guidance and mentorship, which I feel would be instrumental in the entire process. Please find attached my CV for your kind review. So the CV that we learned how to make one can be attached over here as a separate Word document. I look forward to your reply. Sincerely, and followed by your name. So we also discussed about the automatic text checkers. So for example, the text checker, which is Grammarly in this case, has highlighted AKU. And when I hover my mouse over here, it tells me that I need to put a comma over here. So if I make, for example, a spelling mistake in so if one makes a spelling mistake while typing quickly, the spell checker will help us correct that mistake. Then I'll be graduating in November. Following that, the spell checker wants me to put a comma over here, an extensive wants me to remove and from here, of the field, in the field, so, and a comma. So this is how a spell checker will help us recheck every email that we are sending. And since it's possible that you might be sending 5-10 emails per day, a spell checker is always very, very useful. Once you have checked your email for every sort of mistake, you have to put in the email address towards the very end. Once you have done that, you can either send it directly or use the schedule email function of your email service provider, and then schedule it for example, morning, 8 a.m., afternoon, or whatever time you think is more appropriate for the recipient. Usually people prefer that the emails should be sent towards the earlier part of the day. For example, 8 a.m., 9 a.m., 10 a.m. So now till this point, what we have seen is how the difference between a resume and a CV, how to build one CV, then how to write a email which will enclose that CV, and how to write a covering letter. Then the next question is, how can we find out opportunities and connect with relevant people? So you have your CV with you, you have an idea how to write an email. Now you need an email address to send your CV and the covering letter to. So these are some of the avenues that you can explore. This is not an exhaustive list. Academic conferences, virtual academic groups, society memberships, Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter. All of these avenues will provide you with opportunities, especially academic conferences, which are virtual these days. You should always attend these conferences and then connect with like-minded people, which will help you get those email addresses that you can then subsequently email. One of the opportunities that I remember is that Surgery Interest Group conducts this breakfast with surgeons every year. This can be, and I think it was virtual this year. Events like the breakfast with surgeons will help you build contacts, and then using those contacts, you can always email them your CV and ask for opportunities. And while emailing, you'll always have to remember that you need to quote whatever avenue you utilize to connect with them. For example, if their mentee recommended you, you can always mention them. That will help them understand where you're coming from. If you went through their research work, for example, you scroll through their PubMed profile, you can always mention that you went through their recent articles and you like whatever they're researching on and you want to join their research team. So this is how you'll go about it. You will first make your CV, have a master CV with you, then know how to write an email, and then use these networking avenues to connect with relevant faculty. So today we went over difference between resume and a CV, what to include in a CV and what not to include, do's and don'ts of a CV writing, email writing, and then when you have all of this, you'll have to have networking opportunities to find relevant people whom you can send those CVs and via the email writing skills that you have, and then connect with them and then get a response and start doing whatever you want to. Questions?
Okay, thank you so much, Dr. Ali. So there isn't any hand raised at the moment. Is there any question in chat, Manzar?
Not till now.
So if any of the participant wants to ask a question, they can raise their hand or they can ask in the chat. So there is a question that is it recommended to attach CV in the first email we are sending to someone to a network, to network.
Well, nothing is mandatory. You can always email them without a CV, but it's good to have something that will help them understand whoever you are as a person, and then sort of understand why you want to connect with them. If they have a document detailing all of your past experiences, that will help them choose you for a particular job that you are suited to. If you don't include it, there's nothing mandatory over there, but it'll help your cause if you attach it over there.
Okay. I hope that answers the question. Um, so if any of the participant has like missed any part of this session, so we will have a recording of this that we are going to upload, right, Manzar? So you guys can go over the recording because it won't be possible to go over the parts of the session for Dr. Ali again and again. So I hope that's understandable.
Yes, this recording will be available on the YouTube channel very soon.
Yeah, so you guys can go over the recording if you have missed any part due to connectivity issue or any other thing.
So there's another question that is repeated. Can we include Coursera courses in CV and attended webinars, conference as well?
Definitely. Everything that you have been up to can be included, including Coursera courses, online workshops, online conferences, everything. Physical conferences, online conferences, all of that can be included in your CV. Definitely.
Okay, so if like there aren't any questions, so one thing that we have a post test. So Manzar will be sharing the link of the post test in a while. So everyone is requested to please fill in that post test. And as I mentioned before, that in order to get this certificate, you have to fill in and basically submit both the pre-test and the post test. Manzar, can you please share the link? So Manzar has shared the link of the post test. Everyone please fill in the post test. And so this was amazing. Yeah, sorry.
There's this question on, is there an echo? Hello? Ali, I think you're on mute. So there's this question on how you can keep in touch with your mentor after you are done with a particular elective or research. You can periodically email them about your progress, and that's completely fine, and that will do. So you can tell them what you have been doing over the last month or 2 months or 3 months. whatever frequency that you decide is comfortable for you. Then you can tell them that you have been doing so and so research, or you have been doing so and so elective, or you have been doing so and so rotation, just to stay in touch. And that's a positive thing to do, definitely. Whenever you are done with an elective, you can always keep on emailing your faculty to stay in touch. Then can we add the webinars, conferences to our CV? If yes, in which section? You can add them in certifications and licensure section, because we'll obviously not have a lot of licenses during our med school. So that section can be used to add all these courses that you have been doing.
Yeah, a couple of people also asked if what's the way to like get connected with you. So do you want to share your email if you are comfortable? Email address.
Sure, you can share it with them. I might take some time to respond to your emails, but definitely you may share it with them. Can we include volunteering in different student organizations in our CV? If yes, under which heading? So yes, we can include it, and under the heading of extracurricular activities or professional experience, because professional experience generally entails different jobs. But till med school, or till towards the end of med school, we aren't actively doing any job. So you can always include these activities in different professional organizations or student-run bodies within your med school under that section. So either under extracurricular activities or under the professional experience section of your CV. I think I've covered most of the questions in the chat. If there's any left.
Yeah, almost all of them have been answered. So thank you so much for this wonderful workshop, Dr. Ali. And it was really an honor to have you here today. And we really look forward to host you again for our future events, inshallah. And I am really grateful to all the participants for joining, and our volunteers and the core team, without whom it would not have been possible to organize this event. So I guess we are done from the workshop. Thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you for.
Thank you. Okay, Allah Hafiz.
Allah Hafiz.